Afternoon, everybody. I have lots of meetings today, so this is actually still the morning. I just finished my morning video, but here we go. I'm going to do the rest of what I was talking about, and I alluded to talking about a hate crime that was a hoax. We're going to talk about that next, but first, Maxime Bernier is tweeting, quote, "The left has been demonizing anyone who doesn't believe in their diversity cult. It's no surprise some are trying to exploit this climate of hysteria. As the police chief says, the worst thing about this hoax is that it trivializes the plight of real hate crime victims." And this is, I use a different article than Mr. Bernier tweets to, but links will all be in the description. Number 2 of this is, Bernier said, quote, "Read this excellent recent piece in the C2C Journal about the growing phenomenon of hate crime hoaxes, which is being fueled by the many leftists, activists masquerading as journalists in our media." Right? They find something that confirms their bias and they push it and sometimes embellish it. And here's a hate crime hoax. Hate crime attack on cafe staged, Winnipeg police say, after owners charged with mischief. The family insists they didn't make up the story of alleged attack. Vandalism. So I'm not going to go through this story because it's the police say, no, that's it. It was a staged crime and all 3 owners have been charged. So interesting. Okay, I'll read a bit of it. An anti-Semitic attack originally called, quote, "the most brazen the city had seen was staged by the owners of the restaurant," that reported it, the Winnipeg police say. All 3 members of the family that own the Bearmax Cafe and Bistro on Corey Denave, have been arrested and charged with public mischief since the incident was initially reported last week. The family, however, insists they didn't fake anything. I scroll down. Winnipeg Police Chief Danny Smith says Wednesday the attack was staged. The anti-Semitic graffiti and vandalism were also falsely reported as being done by outside suspects, Smith said. "We found evidence of a crime. It just wasn't a hate crime," said Smith, adding the police expended considerable resources investigating and took the report seriously. So I'll leave it there. You can read more. There is more. They talk about deeply disturbed that people would do this to themselves, and the family says that they're innocent. They said they didn't do it. So read it for yourself and make up your own mind. I don't know. Do you remember this? Here's a report going back to January 25th, 2019. Second man arrested in Kingston, Ontario, attack plot released without charge. And RCMP charged 1 youth with terrorism-related offenses Friday morning in relation to raids at 2 Kingston, Ontario residences. A second adult male was arrested but later released without charge, right? And if you scroll down, the names are, these are Hassam Adin Al-Zabi, 20, right? So he was the man released. And apparently, and here's another article about it, just to refresh your memory. I'm not going to go through it, but he was arrested, released on bail. And here's a tweet. "Remember the little terrorist from Kingston, who plotted and planned and built bombs to murder Canadian, 5 charges, and is being protected because he's youth. Well, he was just rearrested on charges of mischief and breach of bail." Here's the article. So, youth accused in Kingston terrorism case rearrested on new charges. A 16-year-old boy previously arrested in Eastern Ontario over an alleged terrorism plot is now facing new charges. Police in Kingston, Ontario say the boy, whose name is protected by a publication ban, was rearrested on Sunday. They declined to say what led to his arrest, but confirmed he's now charged with 1 count each of mischief and breach of bail conditions. The teen, who was first arrested in January, was released from custody earlier this month under a number of strict bail conditions. These included promises to be in the company of 1 of 2 family members at all times, stay off the internet other than for pre-approved educational purposes, and wear an electronic monitoring device issued by the RCMP. The teen was previously facing 5 charges related to the allegations that he had hatched a terrorist plot but had yet to choose a target. That's why I included the other 2 articles, because the details were very, very sparse in this CP24 article. And so, are you happy with our justice system? I'm certainly not. I don't think that releasing somebody to the supervision of their parents or whoever, family members, whatever, who let it happen in the first place is not nearly good enough, especially when we're talking about innocent Canadian lives being put at risk. The last story was from last night, and this is happening in Canada. This is terribly concerning because it is very, very, it'll have real implications across the country. People will cite a BC Supreme Court decision, and this man has no recourse. It's very, I'm understating it. Very concerning is understating it. I'm being very nice. I have a big long line of swear words I'd like to say before saying this is ridiculous, because it is ridiculous. This should not be happening. However, here we go. It is happening, and well, here we go. Father gagged found guilty of family violence for calling his trans daughter a she. Last week, Justice Francesca Marizzi of the Supreme Court of British Columbia, Canada, declared a father guilty of family violence against his 14-year-old daughter on the sole basis that he had engaged in expressions of rejection of her gender identity. These expressions revolved entirely around his polite refusal to refer to his daughter as a boy in private and his steady choice to affirm that she is a girl in public. I'm going to scroll down. Her father, Clark, strongly objects to this treatment. Okay, you know what? I'll just read the whole thing. As previously reported, BC Supreme Court ordered in February that 14-year-old Maxine received testosterone injections without parental consent. To make this more clear, at 18, you can do what you want. Until 18, your parents have control. They can consent to surgery. They can say no to surgery. They can do all sorts of things. Parents have a responsibility to their children. So at 14 years old, Maxine is not legally able to make this choice herself. Despite doctors and other people being all for it, she is not legally responsible for herself. Her parents are, as far as I understand our system. And this is absolutely abhorrent. Somebody needs to step in on this. This is incredibly poor choice. Unbelievable. Anyway, happening in Canada. So accordingly, Maxine began regular injections of testosterone at British Columbia Children's Hospital over the course of the last 2 months. Her father, Clark, strongly objects to this treatment and immediately sought to reverse the decision in the BC Court of Appeal. Hoping to raise awareness of his case, Clark gave a number of interviews to media outlets, including The Federalist. In these interviews, he repeatedly referred to his daughter as a girl, stating to The Federalist that, quote, she is a girl. Her DNA will not change through all these experiments that they do. While many may take this to be an honest statement of biological fact, Marizzi quoted it as a prime example of Clark's, quote, family violence of public denial of Maxine's gender identity. Marizzi convicted Clark of this violence and issued a protection order preventing him from speaking to journalists or the public about his case. Unbelievable. And I'll show you. This is the BC Supreme Court's decision, and I'll show you the part. Okay, so here's the court decision, and here it is on paragraph 64. It says, as between protecting AB from the harm of the family violence of a public denial of his gender identity by his father and allowing his father to speak publicly about his parental rights as they concern this deeply private aspect of AB's innermost thoughts and feelings, the balance strongly favors the protection of AB. So there you go. So this is happening in Canada. These things that are supposed to be protecting our children and protecting our families and protecting ourselves are being used to silence those people who are saying these interventions, one, don't typically end up helping the person's mental state. It doesn't fix the problem. They don't feel the way they think they were going to feel. And I'm not saying that because I'm speculating. I'm saying that because I've read AMA's Ask Me Anythings on Reddit from people who were trans, and I can leave a link if there's interest, but who were trans and said it never felt real. It didn't feel like, even after transitioning, it never felt real. I wish I hadn't done it. So I'm not trying to speak out of turn, and I'm not trying to speculate on something. I'm trying to tell you things that I've read. But further than that, after you're 18, you should be able to choose whatever you want to do. Up until you're 18 years old, parents and guardians have a responsibility to keep you safe. And starting hormones or anything to that effect is not easily reversible, if it's reversible at all, and has never been done in human history. It is an experiment en masse, and it's terribly concerning. So, interesting that the Supreme Court of British Columbia is siding with, well, the decision is interesting and terribly concerning, with that caveat from the beginning of the video. Okay, I really have to go. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope you check out thepeoplespartyofcanada.ca. Thanks for watching, everybody.